Lifer and the Lady contains strong language, which some viewers may find disturbing. Parents are urged to exercise discretion, particularly those with young children. The people in this film are not actors. They are real people taking part in real events.
A.m. on cell block 4. Ron Cooney goes to a friend's cell for his morning coffee. A few blocks away, Lesley Earl gets her 2 children ready for the day.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
She is a woman from a middle-class background, married to a captain in the armed forces. He is an inmate at Collins Bay Penitentiary in Kingston, Ontario, who is serving the 10th year of a sentence that began in 1973.
Brush your teeth and do your nose.
Until recently, she had never set foot inside a prison. Now she goes to Collins Bay regularly to participate in inmate groups as an outside volunteer. It was at one such group that she met Ron Cooney. Against her better judgment, she is growing increasingly attracted to him, and she doesn't understand why. Cooney is a lifelong criminal, a professional armed robber, and a veteran of the Montreal underworld. In 1973, he killed a man.
It was August the 28th, 1973. It was a Wednesday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on St. Catherine Street in Montreal, which is the rush hour in Montreal. I shot a guy on the street. Basically, what I did was I shot him and killed him, and it was what was termed in the papers as compte de règlement, settling of accounts.
How many times was he shot?
I shot him once, but that's all I had to shoot him.
How soon afterwards did he die?
He died in the operating table, I would say, maybe 3 hours later.
What was the sentence?
I was sentenced to life in prison for homicide and volunteer, which is manslaughter, which at that time was an unusual sentence for someone to get for manslaughter.
Are you sorry for this killing?
Am I sorry? Are you asking me if I regret? I don't regret anything that happened in my life, because if I regretted it, I wouldn't be at this point of where I am.
The newspaper said the killing was an underworld settling of accounts. Yet a conviction of manslaughter means there was no intent to kill. Cooney will not talk about it. His soft-spoken manner is deceptive, for it cloaks a volcanic temper.
I was basically the quiet guy that sat in the corner, you know, and who would just explode. It was just like, I guess I had a raging violence within me, you know. It was like an animal instinct to kill. I would attack with anything. You know, I was very dangerous. There's no doubt in my mind. Well, I would attack with what I could find. If it was a bottle, I would attack. If it was a knife, I would attack. If it was a bat, I would attack. If it was a gun, I would shoot you. When I was sentenced by Judge Shortino, he said, as far as I'm concerned, you're a cold-blooded murderer, and I sentence you to life in prison.
Would you say that your violence has been committed as cold-blooded acts? you?
Some of them were. Like, look, put it this way, that when I would commit a violent act, I was aware of what I was doing. There was the occasional time where I would have blackouts, but that's no justification, because temper will cause you to, like if you have such a rage in you that you become violent in such a rage, you have a mental blackout. This is when you aren't capable of killing, and you don't even realize it sometimes. I used to go into such fits of rage that I didn't even realize what I was doing or had done until, I'd come to choking somebody on a floor in a bar, choking them, and looking down and seeing the eyeballs popping out, and saying, God, what am I doing here?
Lesley Earl first met Cooney in December 1981 at a meeting of a group called the 10 Plus, for inmates serving 10 years or more.
At our Christmas social, I spent that whole social talking to him, telling him about myself, about my marriage, which was in the process of disintegrating. And at one point in the evening, I told him that he had really gentle eyes.
Sorry to cause all this panic.
Cooney is here?
Hi.
When I became aware that I was attracted to Ron, I can remember having a conversation in which I discussed how ludicrous it would be for anybody to get involved with somebody on the inside. And then I wrote him a letter telling him I was interested.
Basically, in the beginning, I thought this was like all an illusion of my mind. I felt that no one as good-looking, as intelligent as her could have, with any way, shape, or form, any interest in someone like me being a prisoner of this system.
I found myself looking at him and thinking, gee, he's a nice-looking guy. Wouldn't mind being one of the women that he meets.
Lesley used to come every week to the group, just dressed to kill. I mean, it was just, she used to just get really fixed up, like it was going out on a date, And I used to shower and fix all of this and fix my hair and put on cologne and brush my teeth 900 times and go through the whole trip. It was like we had a date once a week, Well, this is my last shot at happiness, and Lesley realizes that it's her last shot at happiness, and we're going to make the most of it. We're determined to see this thing through to the end, and we're determined to make a life together.
So give her a big hug. The last hug of the day. Good.
And so a new chapter in Lesley Earl's life begins. Her husband moves out, leaving the house, the kids, and maintenance payments behind. Now she will abandon her protected middle-class life and enter into a frightening new world. This is Ron Cooney's world. new correctional staff at a graduation ceremony demonstrate their readiness for the increasing violence that is a fact of modern prison life.
Hey, Screw, you had my TA canceled, and now you're going to pay.
After a lifetime of violence, Ron Cooney has a legacy of war wounds from the many skirmishes on his long criminal record.
I've had this knuckle broken. I've had this thumb broken. I've had this cut open down here with a bottle. This is a razor blade slash. This is another razor blade slash. And I got a few more up here. And there's one across here. This one here was a steel thing about, I don't know, maybe about 18 inches long that was driven through here and came out through here, and it had to be cut off with a torch before they took me to the hospital to have it taken up. I've had these ribs here broken, all of them. I've had a few ribs over here broken. I've had this shoulder located. This elbow here, it's all like the chips, you know, bone chips. And this one here is probably even worse. That's all bone chips, too. I've had this knee, this hip, this knee, this ankle broken. I've had this hamstring ripped completely under the fat. I've totaled 2 cars being chased. I've been shot at many times, many times. One bullet passed through here, and another one passed through here, under the thing there. I mean, like, my karma has been good.
One more.
Got it done.
I've been surrounded by violence for the majority of my life, both in prison and out of prison. It reached a point in my life where I had to be a violent person to survive. And it reached a point in my life where I was tired of being violent. I didn't want to be violent anymore.
And so Cooney takes his first tentative steps in the long struggle towards regaining his freedom. He applies to the parole board, knowing there's little chance they will parole a lifer directly onto the street from a medium security institution like Collins Bay. Even if the board approves, the best he can hope for at first will be the occasional day pass.
Hi, Ron. How are you, Foyle? Yeah?
He has requested a meeting with his classification officer, Bob Willis, to lobby for his support. He will need all the help he can get. Even at the best of times, the board is cautious about paroling lifers. And now there's a growing public outcry against giving any kind of parole to violent offenders like Cooney. He will have to prove that he is no longer dangerous.
How are you today? Good, good. I've got Chris in here. Parole service, yeah. Well, I've asked Chris to come in this morning. I wanted to talk to you a bit about the past.
The biggest obstacle he will have to overcome will be the record of an incident that happened the last time he was let out of prison, 2 years earlier. As Lesley Earl is about to learn, he was married to another woman at the time. He was in a Quebec prison when he was granted day parole to Montreal. But his marriage had gone sour, and the day parole turned into a disaster.
My marriage, what happened? Well, I had the good fortune of having a woman who was my wife at that time, who was, in all probability, too good for me at that time. She was a good, loving woman who went through, I would say, 10 years of hell with me.
What happened?
What happened was, I guess the time got too long and she met another guy. That's what happened. And I was being released on the 13th of November, 1980, on day parole to a halfway house. On the 11th of November, she came up and asked me for a divorce. So, I guess I was at a point in life there where I was just going to get out and get this guy, and that was all there was to it. So I got out and I spent, all I had was a name, the first name. And it took me 23 days in the city of Montreal with 1.5 million people to find this guy. And in 23 days of searching, day and night, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, I found this guy, and I had to find him, and I did.
Armed with a .38, he was apprehended in a taxi by a Montreal SWAT team and charged with making threats of death.
I wanted to beat this guy so bad. I didn't want to kill him because that would have been doing him a favor. At that time, I thought that that would have been doing him a favor. I just wanted to beat him so bad that he would be a cripple for about 10 years and just would have to sit there and just with his mind in prison, just like my body was in prison and my mind was in prison. And to make him understand what it's like, you know, make him understand the emotions involved, make him understand that you just don't do things like that to people.
I didn't plan on falling in love. I didn't plan on having... In fact, I would have... If I were listening to my story from somebody else, I would think they were crazy. Absolutely insane. It's very hard to have a relationship on the street, let alone develop a relationship with somebody who is in prison and who is going to have to deal with all the adjustments that coming out of prison entails. Sometimes you can take in toys with you for the children to play with. One day, one of the kids came in and he brought in a toy gun. And that gun got passed around. It was the most eerie feeling to see Ron put it in his hand, and it fit there. I mean, it's like he knew exact. It was almost like it belonged.
From the start, her family opposed her relationship with Cooney.
And my father was saying that, what he said to me is, why do you always go to the bottom of the barrel, or why do you have to hang around muck and wear so much of it?
He knew that if he was to win another chance at his freedom, he would have to demonstrate that he could control the violent impulses in his nature. He must find a way to turn himself inside out psychologically, to virtually remake himself. He was determined to try. He mapped out a program of therapies, courses, and other activities, any method available to him in prison that would help him learn to subdue his dangerous rages.
Take time, huh?
It's one thing that we got lots of.
When I started on this journey in life to correct what I felt was my major fault, which was my temper and my lack of control over it, I got into yoga and meditation, which is really a super calming thing. Hatha yoga, once you have completed an entire set of asanas or exercises, and once you're finished, you are very calm and mellow. I really believe that if they could get people doing time to practice in themselves, then it would do a lot to alleviate the violence. And from there I branched out into meditation. And you meditate, and you just let your mind go, you know, and you become so relaxed and so calm, you know. But in between the yoga and the meditation, when I got here, I got into biofeed, which I knew was also a form of learning how to control your emotions.
Okay, pal, just relax and concentrate on the music. try and let those tensions dissolve.
When I got into biofeed, I started understanding that, hey, man, when I'm really pissed off, I got this, the machine goes crazy, and all I got to do is think nice thoughts, and the machine goes down, you know? So I would get on the machine experiment. I would think, kill, and this machine would go, and I would think, you know, beautiful thoughts like flowers, or, you know, women, or making love to a woman, or seeing a, you know, a naked woman walking through a beautiful clearing, you know, near a brook, you know, beautiful thoughts, colors, everything in Technicolor, and the machine would go like this. So I began to understand my emotions.
To avoid the daily frictions of prison life that could ignite his temper, he took a job outside, cleaning the prison yard, away from possible conflicts with the staff and other inmates.
I developed many tricks to calm me down. I try to get out of the institution as soon as possible. I try to get out ahead of the mob that generates towards the door at 5 after 8. I go out, and now I have solitary moments to walk on my way to work, and as I walk, I can take in the sky and the grass and listen to the birds and get all this beautiful tranquility pumped into me before my day has even begun. So by 8 o'clock, I'm basically a very mellow guy. Lesley visits me 5 times a week, and since April, which is, I would imagine 6 or 7 months now that we've been visiting, she's visited me, I'd say 140 times. Getting to the visit itself is a nice trip. You know, like you go through about 3 security barriers, and you're patted down about 3 times, and you gotta keep emptying your pockets and filling them up. You have no privacy whatsoever. It's a complete lack of privacy. You are watched 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Thank you. Just one. Thank you.
That's fine.
Got one for Frost, thank you. If you were to put someone in that environment where they're constantly watched, constantly living under bright lights, constantly monitored, every movement you make is monitored, including your visits and your correspondings and your telephone conversations, everything. You have no privacy whatsoever.
Did they ever get to talk to you about why, or did they ever find out why? Well, he's being stingy. Bye-bye.
The staff consider his relationship with Lesley a stabilizing influence. Prison psychologist Milk Lupe has been closely following his progress.
Up to the time that he committed his murder, he apparently was a man with a nearly uncontrollably violent temper that was getting him into constant situations of frequently vicious violence. How much would you say that Cooney has changed?
Compared to that, it's almost like night and day. He was a very violent individual, and today the most violence he shows is being verbally aggressive. Statistically, the number of offenders that are in jail decreases dramatically with age. And there are very few people who are, in fact, over 30 and in jail.
His classification officer, Bob Willis, perhaps the key prison official in his life, has also noticed the new Ron Cooney.
I think his last institutional offense was some time ago. In June of '82 was the last time he had a confrontation with any of our people here at the institution, and it was only of a verbal nature. It wasn't physical. So, yeah, I'd have to say that he has come a long way.
At one point, very recently, something happened in the visiting room that I just wanted to jump up and just pound this guy in his face so badly, like the old me just came right to the surface, and I just wanted to just drive his head through a wall or through a glass or through anything, and I felt the rage coming up into me, you know, and I really wanted to go after this guy, and this happens, you know, frequently, you know. What I have to do is I have to grab myself. I have to become like two persons. I can analyze it and say, fuck, there's anger, man. I realized that, oh, gee, it's only anger. And that brings me back down, and I say, whoa. And I repeat in my mind 10 or 12 times, calm, calm, calm. And as I repeat, calm, 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 I start calming out. I start mellowing out.
He's probably considered a model inmate, yes.
October 31st, 1982, a momentous day. The parole board has approved Cooney's program of temporary absences, or TAs, starting today with an 8-hour pass. He has not set foot out of prison for 2 years, not since the disastrous day parole in Montreal.
I'm here, Ron Cooney.
If the pass goes well, it will go a long way towards restoring his credibility as a good parole risk. He would then be eligible for a transfer to a minimum security institution, the next major step on the road back to another chance at day parole.
Yes, you're wearing these boots, are they?
Yeah.
Let's have a look at them. Okay. Okay, there's a few conditions that concern your pass, and one of them is you abstain from all drugs and intoxicants.
Right on.
You're not to drive a motor vehicle.
Right on. I have no intention of driving.
You're to remain in the limits of the city.
You got
Not go out of it,
no problem.
and you're not to bring anything additionally back with you that you haven't taken out with you. Okay? You realize and you understand them all?
Yep.
Sign it right there then as being told.
Been waiting a long time to do this, huh?
This your first pass?
No. Well, I had a few up in Quebec. This is my first time in Ontario.
Sure, anyway. Now, I must spell
See
out
right
to
there?
you.
I saw my
see
Quebec number, man.
I must spell out to you that you got to be back here at 19:30 hours. You realize that that's 7:30 tonight, eh?
Today will also mark the first time Ron and Lesley have been alone together since they met.
Go this way.
The first time, after visiting 5 days a week for over half a year.
Inmate 6931 Cooney, pass for him to go out on TA. There you go. Have a good day.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mill. See you at 7:30.
Aside from a brief glimpse on the way in, the day he was transferred here from Quebec, today will be his first real look at the prison and the city he's been living in for the past 14 months.
So turn around, take a look at Disneyland. Do it?
Yes, sir. Home, James. Look at this. Look Just big fucking guy on the whole trip. Maybe too much. Now here we are driving out.
Yep. Looking through little bars in the back of the windshield.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
I thought I still had bars on my eyeballs. I was wondering where the kids went.
Yeah. That's what I want to know from you.
Not yet. We took out some out of the car. Yeah, we were throwing some out of the car. Yes! Okay, now roll it out. Go out. That's a good boy. Roll it out. There you go.
Come here.
Here you go. Here you go. I've always been doing things.
You're welcome. Long time no see.
Yeah, many months to see him.
All kinds of it.
Hey, Liz,
This is
brush
too
your
much.
crap on me.
Donna.
Okay, guys.
Oh, God. Could have worn my heart. Bye, gang.
Bye.
Thanks, sir.
Returning to Collins Bay, he found prison almost unbearable after his taste of freedom.
When I came back at the following visit, it was like a depression. There I was back in the visiting room with the constant Cooney, you turn your chair and face the table, and Cooney, don't touch the knee, and Cooney, don't stand by the window, and Cooney, don't embrace too long, and Cooney, the visit is over, and...
Soon after his return, the tension in the prison escalates dangerously. Security officials, such as Preventive Security Officer Bob Frankovich, prepare for the worst.
This time at Collins Bay, I would say, in the time I've been here, that they're probably more tense than they ever have been.
They're fighting in the strip, they're fighting in the mess hall, they're fighting in the ranges, they're fighting in the cells, they're fighting in the gym, they're fighting at the movies.
Well, we've had a marked increase on assaults on staff, vicious assaults on staff, I might add.
Myself, personally, I don't have anything to worry about. But if anything does come down, I don't want to be caught in the middle of it. I'm not prepared to do more time over somebody else's stupidity.
They have to do something, be it smash up their cell or break furniture on the range. They have to participate. They're forced into it, or else they're placing their own life and well-being in jeopardy.
What I'm saying is it's a jungle in here. It's really a jungle. And if you live in a jungle, you have to be like the people living in it.
He asks for an immediate transfer out of Collins Bay, a prison which later will become the focus of a government inquiry because of the number of murders there. He wants to be admitted to the minimum security farm camp, Frontline, that lies just outside its walls. If he can rally enough support among prison officials, he could be at Frontline in a matter of weeks.
They have, I guess, the Frontline, they have the odd beef, or the odd guy gets hit over the head with a pipe, or maybe there's the odd guy stabbed, I don't know. But like, it wouldn't be an everyday occurrence, which is basically, it's almost an everyday occurrence here. You know, like, I've been here, 14 months, and I haven't seen a week go by yet where someone hasn't been dragged down the strip to the hospital. on a stretcher, or, you know, scooped up out of the yard, or, you know, like in the gym, in the bathrooms, in the cells, in the kitchens, in the dining hall, you know. It's, I don't know. The more I talk about it, the more wound up I get.
Ron, I did get an application from you for camp.
Yeah.
And we've already discussed the situation. Maybe you could tell me, though, why you want to go to camp.
Eventually, he must plead his case before a minimum security review panel, known as the Camp Board. But first, he needs the support of these men: Bob Willis, his classification officer, and Chris Trowbridge, his parole officer. As the correctional officials who have worked most closely with him, their votes could make or break his case before the Camp Board.
Yeah. Another aspect of the application for camp at this time is that now that you've completed one unescorted TA, it's kind of a natural progression for you to move out into a lesser security institution.
We will be supporting transfer to minimum camp. We've already discussed it. Okay, camp.
The support of the prison psychologist, Milk Lupe, further improves his chances.
I believe that he's come a long way. I think that he's accomplished a great deal, and also that he will make a success of himself.
With so much staff support, it was expected the approval of the Camp Board would be virtually automatic. The transfer to minimum security would bring him much closer to day parole.
Okay, it's finished, Britt.
I can see you behind the curtain.
Soon there would be no more Collins Bay, no more visits under surveillance. He could be back on the street in just a few months.
There you go.
November 16th, the day before the Camp Board hearing. That afternoon, Cooney watches TV with some other inmates near his cell. Soon afterwards, violence will break out on the cell range. A few hours after this scene was filmed, this inmate, Lee Savory, was repeatedly knifed and clubbed over the head with a lead pipe.
As a result of the assault, he received 5 stab wounds to his left leg, several deep cuts to his forehead, and facial lacerations and bruises.
Because the incident happened in a cell so close to Cooney's, he finds himself a prime suspect. Suddenly, all his release plans are in jeopardy. All the inmates on the range are locked in their cells, and an investigation begins.
So I sat here all night long saying to myself that here I am going to the Camp Board, everything's so close to getting out, and I know that if this poor guy dies, everything that I had going for me was completely shot down because I become a suspected murderer. And the procedure there is to deny everybody, all passes, everything is denied. So there I was at one moment on my way out, and the next moment facing the possibility of be frozen in this institution for a year or 2 more.
The next morning, Lesley Earl arrives, unaware of the drama that is taking place. With an hour to go before the hearing begins, Cooney learns inmate Savory has survived and that he is no longer a suspect. But still in a state of great agitation, he must face the Camp Board.
First case is number 6931, Cooney, Ronald, FPS number 124107A, requesting transfer to Frontline.
The board wants to discuss his disastrous day parole in Montreal.
Have a seat there, Ron. This is the Minimum Security Selection Board. And as you know, our job involves assessing cases like yours for transfer to minimum security. We have your the report of your case management team and your application for transfer to Frontenac here. And we've discussed it, and we have a few concerns, and I'd kind of like to ask you a few questions. Our chief concern is your behavior on day parole. This last time out, you incurred some pretty serious offenses. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about that.
What would you like me to tell you?
Okay, possession of a dangerous weapon. What was the weapon?
The weapon was a .38.
And threatening.
Yes.
Or threats of death.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just sort of give us an idea of...
Well, you want to know exactly what happened?
Okay, I guess clearly our concern is that...
Okay, clearly I can understand your concern, but it's like this. First of all, that case was appealed and it's no longer standing. Second of all, I don't see what it has to do with a transfer to a minimum.
It has a lot to do with the transfer to minimum in that it could affect the threat that you may pose to the public.
Basing your thing on the theory that you're basing it on, as long as I'm restrained by the federal penitentiary system, whether it's in the farm camp or in a halfway house, as long as there's some restraint on me, I will not be committing violent incidents. This is what your theory is based on. The farm camp, in essence, is a restraint. And when I walked out of this joint on October 31st, 1982, which is only about 3 weeks ago, there was no restraints on me, and I came back. So, I mean, like, what is exactly the hassle? I was also out 30 times in Quebec and came back. So obviously, the flow goes like...
No one is suggesting that you're a security risk in as much as that you will fail to return to the institution. There's no suggestion of that at all. Our concern mainly is, I don't know exactly what the dynamics were in this last situation in Quebec.
Well, the dynamics were very simple. I got set up by the cops on the telephone and got busted trying to do what I was doing while there was about 50 cops around with submachine guns and the rest of it. This is what you want to discuss. Let's discuss the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay, I was set up by the cops, you understand? This is documented evidence.
Did they give you the 38?
I was set up so badly that I appealed the case, and I went into the Canadian Criminal Cases 1982 December edition, page 96, on appeal. So, I mean, what you're talking about is something that's non-existent as a charge. As a situation, it's still existent, you know.
It exists as a charge, and that you still stand convicted of it.
What I'm telling you is the fact that if you want to know the facts are that I was set up. Okay. This is the
Did
fact.
the police give you the gun?
No, the police didn't give me the gun.
So what are you running around on day parole with a .38 for?
Well, there was probably some other... This is something, first of all, okay? You know, that I don't even know why we're discussing, okay? This is completely immaterial to the fact that I'm asking you for a transfer to a farm camp.
No, you're...
So then well, then go ahead, discuss it.
Okay, our concern is that you pose a certain threat to the community. Okay, if, as you say, you were set up and you're an innocent victim of a police manipulation, we really have no evidence of that. But what it appears to be is that there was a circumstance that arose in your life which resulted in you taking some action which the public would find very distasteful. That's really what it boils down to. We don't have a firm comprehension of what those dynamics were.
Well, quite obviously, it's quite obvious to me, okay, exactly what's happening, and what's happening is simply this. It seems the parole board has a strong grasp on the situation. They seem to have trusted me enough to put me out into society on a TA program.
Okay, fine.
So, I mean, now what we're discussing is a transfer to a camp.
That's right.
Which still has some type of restraints on it.
Okay,
like I'm not here to argue
what a minimum
with you
security inmate is an inmate who shouldn't escape, okay? And if he does, he shouldn't be considered dangerous. And the question that we have is Ron Cooney dangerous if at large?
Well,
and right now, I'm not sure.
Okay, then could you possibly point out to me what are the qualifying factors to be transferred from this joint to a camp?
Number one, that you're not likely to escape. And number two, that if you do escape, you won't be considered dangerous. And the question that we're grappling with is Ron Cooney a dangerous person?
Okay. The first point you made is he likely to escape?
I think I've dealt with that. We don't consider you to be an escape risk.
Okay, fine. So that there is settled. I'm not escape risk. Okay, the second factor is Ron Cooney dangerous? Well, this is something that, how can it be answered? The only way it can be answered is by letting me go to a camp and trying it out. If you stopped every guy that you considered potentially dangerous from going to a camp, you'd have 4,000 guys here instead of 400.
Okay, but what we have here is we have a situation where you were convicted of a very serious offense in 1974. You got your act together.
I was convicted of offenses in 64, and I was convicted of, we're not talking about what I was convicted about. What we're talking about here is, A, if I'm going to go to a camp board, and B, if you believe firmly enough, in, you know, your system, then I'm going to get there, okay? What we're discussing here is that you have a certain situation within the institution starting to get worse every day, and I want to get out of it before I get caught in the middle of it. Okay?
I can appreciate your interest in minimum security. The atmosphere is definitely much better.
It is.
However, I think my concerns remain at this moment. That's again, the violence and also the alcohol problem. Per se, I'm not sure that that's completely clear in my mind.
Well, I tell you what, you can either decide to let me go to camp, okay, or you can decide to let me stay here. Okay? I mean, this is your decision, okay?
That's right.
This is your decision. What I'm asking you is, I would like to go to camp. I've been in your institution here for 14 months, and I think the gentleman sitting there from security can verify the fact that I've never been involved in any kind of security incidents. Okay, my rapport with the CXs and the staff here is good. My communication with the inmates is good. I do my job. I keep out of trouble. And if I'm not a model inmate, I'm probably one of the model inmates within the institution, okay? I belong to a yoga class. I instruct that. I meditate daily, okay, which can be verified. I do biofeed, okay? So, I mean, like, I've worked on my violent aspects of my character. And I think that at this point in time, after everything I put into it, I deserve at least a chance to get to a farm camp.
Okay,
you know,
can you, since you've made these gains, can you give us some insight as to what, you know, what happens? When does Ron Cooney get violent? This past situation, the dangerous weapon, the .38, and the death threats by telephone. Can you explain that thing to us? Did you have a relationship that was going, you know,
listen, this is
going
something
down?
personal that I don't feel like discussing at this point in time. It's all on my file.
No, it's not.
It isn't?
No.
Well, then, if it's not there, I just don't feel like this is the place to discuss it. What you're doing now, you're involving yourself in my personal life.
Well, no, I'm involving the public. My job is to decide whether, in fact, we put you in a largely unsupervised environment. And unless I can appreciate the situation and can satisfy myself that you've made the gains that you say you have made, it's going to be very difficult for me to say, yeah, I think Ron Cooney's a great candidate for camp. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm coming from, personally.
In other words, you're protecting your ass.
No, I'm not protecting my ass.
Okay, listen.
My responsibility is to ensure, okay, if you want the party line, our job is to administer the sentence of the court. The court sentences you to life in prison, okay? We're trying to provide you with opportunities, okay, to regain your liberty, and it's obvious that a transfer to camp would be a step in that direction. However, we also have a responsibility to protect the public from some of the people that are in our institutions that could be dangerous. Okay, unless I'm satisfied that you're not dangerous, I don't think it's reasonable for you to ask me to put you in a minimum security setting. That's it in a nutshell.
So now you want me to prove to you that I'm no longer dangerous?
I'd like for you to share with me a little bit about you say you've made progress in your tendencies towards violence. Well, tell me about that. Without getting into the real personal aspects, you're involved with a young lady in the community here.
That's right.
Okay? It's my understanding that these last two offenses concerned another woman that you had a relationship with in the community.
Yes, that was my wife.
Okay. Without specific information, I have concerns that perhaps what may be behind it is you're either...
Some sexual deficiency on my part, or a mental derangement of some type, or what?
That you're unable to cope with the stresses of a situation when a relationship starts to go down.
Are you married?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
What would your reaction be if you were doing time, and you did a lot of time, okay, many, many years, okay, many, many years, okay, trying to hang on to a relationship, Okay, only to find at the last minute when you got out it fell apart, and not basically because of your fault. You understand? And then if you went out on a, let's say you were in the circumstances where you went out on a day parole and you were living at a halfway house about maybe 10 blocks from your house, and you had spent all of this time in the craziest joints in Canada, which is Archambault and Collinsville and the rest of these joints in Quebec, you understand? And you were living like 10 blocks away from your house, and you couldn't go to your house, okay? And you had to avoid going to your house day after day after day after day after day. Do you think that after all that time in jail that you would be mentally strong enough to handle it?
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
The board continues its discussions without him. They will call him back into the room to receive the verdict.
As far as getting along with staff and that is concerned, he's had no problems. He's had no problems as far as inmates are concerned, either. His attitude has been, it's been good. There's no doubt about it.
Okay.
No.
Sit down, Ron. Well, this hasn't been terribly easy. I don't know whether you've been an observer of camp boards in the past, but
No, it's the first time I've ever passed one.
Okay. Normally, deliberations are fairly quick. You either are or you aren't camp material. In your situation, you're pretty close. We have some pretty serious concerns, and bear in mind that our decision here is only a recommendation to regional headquarters. The regional director general, or regional deputy commissioner actually, alone has the authority to order transfers. This board only makes recommendations. However, a recommendation is that you remain here. There is concern about where your release program is going. The whole question is what's going to happen. Given that your present approved TA program appears to end in February, it would appear that parole board is going to have to become involved again within the next couple of months in order to either extend that or change it or something. And so we sort of lack a bit of sense of direction. Frontenac has real concerns about
Obviously.
the situation.
Obviously.
However, continue on with your approved UTA program.
Of course, I will take advantage of that situation.
Try to develop, or at least give us a sense of direction. We will review you again in February. Again, hopefully by then things will be very clear in terms of the direction.
No, I
you're going
doubt very much you'll see me in February. This is like about the 10th time I've tried to transfer to what you call farm camps, and in here and in Quebec, and I doubt very much I'll ask again. I've had it with your,
well, that's...
you know, whatever. Anyways, okay, thank you very much. It was a pleasure doing business with you.
Before breaking the news to Lesley, he wanted some time alone.
Well, I got some bad news for you, kid. Let's go stand by the window. Put your cigarettes down. Transfer board refused me.
For real?
Yeah, for real. They refused me.
To when?
Well, they said apply again if ever, but I, in essence, told them I wouldn't bother again. Yeah. I'm not gonna look for that bullshit with them no more. You know, they're going through it enough, and I said, fuck them. Yeah. I had it. You know, like they, you know, it's illogical what they're doing, but that's the name of the game. Yeah. We'll just have to work it out some other way. Well, we still got Monday. It's okay. They can't cut that because the patrol board gave it to me, so, you know. I really don't understand what the fuck it is that they harp on the violence aspect, you know.
What does it have to do with the past?
I don't know. It's illogical. Like I said, but you can't deal logically with illogical people, and they're illogical.
Fucking violence is in here?
No, I mean, they're talking about, you know.
Yeah, you're fine.
We all know how violent I am, you know, so you know, you know, I go around stabbing people, piping people continuously, you know.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, there's,
Jeez.
There's not much that can be done right now. You know? They expressed a major concern for the public safety.
Oh, balls.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody that works with you here recommends you. And people who don't work with you, who don't have any clue about you, say no.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really sweet.
Well, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
They make their decisions without their information, you know, and that's it.
Another fucking winter. Jesus!
Come on. It's not, you know, calm, you know.
You're calm.
You know, calm.
Calm.
Okay, calm, okay. It was hard for me to be calm with these assholes, but I managed to slip through it without, you know, kicking over a table or something, so I progressed. You know, even that little bit, you know. Yeah, it's okay, don't worry about it. There's still Monday. Yeah. Being turned down by the transfer board just pulled the carpet out from under my feet and Lesley's feet. The transfer to a farm camp doesn't just mean getting away from these walls and this institution. It also means that once I go to a farm camp, I progress within the system. All of this was just yanked away completely.
And so Ron Cooney started all over again. Once more, he plunged into his program of yoga and meditation and the rest of the activities that had helped to calm him down. He and Lesley settled in for another long winter of prison visits. 10 days after the hearing, another prison board grants him a privilege reserved for only the most trusted inmates. A special clearance to work outside the walls, tending the grounds under supervision. In one of the many ironies of prison life, his first trip out takes him to the Frontline farm camp.
So we finally made it out to the cow corral. Isn't this too much? The smell of horse shit, really nice. So this is what it looks like. All of these problems are getting me out here, nothing. You believe it? Incredible. A week ago, I was a danger to society. Now I'm standing outside the walls. Isn't that really too much?
Forget about the hassles with the guards. Forget about your parole hearings.
He continues to work away on himself. Despite his disappointment about Frontline, he does not vent his rage and frustration in violence, as he would have done before.
Drop your fantasies.
The authorities recognize how much he has progressed. He finally wins his transfer to Frontenac for 1 week. Then, on March 17th, 1983, 4 months to the day after his camp board hearing, he is granted day parole.
I wouldn't step out onto a limb and say by any stretch of my imagination that he's, not going to ever reoffend again. But I would like to say that I think that the chances of him reoffending are somewhat minimized, and that, there's a better chance of success here. And I think we have to come to grips with that. We can't keep them locked up forever. Okay, we do have to release them to the street again, and certainly that's the case with Ron Cooney.
Do you want to make a prediction of what his chances are?
I wouldn't want to put it in a percentile. I would give him a very high rating. I would say that his chance of success is high, provided all the factors are in his favor.
Okay.
Yeah. This is heavy. Okay. Oh, I did it. Here we go.
Since Frontenac is an adjunct to Collins Bay, he returns to the main institution to be processed for his release on day parole. An official accompanies him to the Portsmouth Community Correctional Center, a kind of halfway house that is to be his home.
Beautiful day, huh?
Beautiful. Hard to believe it's March, eh?
It's hard to believe that I'm out. It's the hard part.
Center on?
That's it, eh?
Now, your first week of residency here, you will be required to return at 7 o'clock. Tomorrow, I would like to sit down with you about 10 o'clock and review your program plan and go through the initial orientation in Portsmouth Center. Okay? Okay?
That would be fine.
So for the rest of the day, I think you can just familiarize yourself with the house and maybe talk to some of the guys and take it easy.
Okay, fine. Will I be allowed to go home for a couple hours?
As soon as you get straightened away here, you're allowed to leave.
Okay, fine.
Okay?
Okay.
Numbers on it. And
just like that.
Right here. Okay? That locker right here is yours. Yeah. And the chest of drawers here is yours.
So my little space.
Little area here.
Oh, these nice little.
TVs?
Yeah. They got these, I think, one of these, because these are really super hot.
All the whipped cream and leave him with. No, you just sip it. And then you, no, Ron, Ron. You hold it up to your mouth and lick it.
Oh, okay.
No.
How's that?
Excellent. Oh, you have one. No. Try again.
Okay, we're ready? Okay, now, how...
Like this, Ron.
Instructions,
like this.
how to become civilized in 2 easy lessons. Hold it, wait a minute. Don't put it on.
Hang on to the serviette and I'll show
Okay,
you.
here we go. Excuse me. What's this? Okay, hang on to the serviette, right? Now I find the hole, right? Now I... Right?
I didn't realize you had trouble.
You can dress him up, but you can't
Take him anywhere.
Yeah, it's good. It's okay.
Could I have a sip?
Yeah, it's really good. The hole, you gotta find the hole. Don't stick your nose in it.
Unlike you, I know where it is.
Touche. Okay.
Was that good now?
Are you insinuating? No.
Thank you.
We spent basically the first 10 days I was out just walking all over downtown Lesley, and I and the kids just kept walking all over and just discovering all these beautiful places and seeing people walking by, and it was like watching a movie screen. It was like 3D, I guess. All this life was just going on all around you, and just seeing it. It was like watching a movie. It was really incredible. You see colors, especially in this time of the year in the spring. It's really beautiful. You see all these colors and flowers growing, and it's really breathtaking, beautiful. It was so nice to walk in a straight line for more than an eighth of a mile without having to make a right hand turn and go back. There used to be 10 cents when I was on the street. It was nice, like you'd see different shapes and sizes of people in different color clothes, you know, besides green. It's nice just to get up in the morning and walk around without seeing bars and guards and uniforms and hearing all this negative shit and feeling all the negative stuff that just goes on in prison. It's nice just to wake up in the morning and feel positive. It's just nice to be free.
And a week later decided that I'd make banana bread, and went downstairs and there were 2 left. And Darren and Doug had eaten 14 pounds of bananas in a week.
Too much? Yeah. I'm dealing with 2 children, and I really sometimes stumble in that area. But the benefits, it's worth it. Like in the beginning, when I used to give him his bath at nighttime, it used to just drive me crazy, all the screaming and the yowling, and you know, and it was just like to hang on without freaking out. But as each night it was my turn to give him a bath, I began to realize that he had like a little play that he had to go through, where he would cry, he didn't want to go to bed, he would fight getting into the bathtub, and then he would calm down and take him into his room, read his story to him, and then he'd just be cuddling into you, and he'd say, "Ron, me love you," and kiss me, and it was, the whole trip of all the yowling and the screaming became worth putting up with, just to get to that point where he would say, "I love you," you know. It's really neat, and it's a neat thing, you know, it makes you feel really human. $2.09. The great shock to me is the fact that things cost so much more than they did before I went in. For instance, you go buy an ice cream cone, it's 80 cents. When I was on the street, it was a dime. If you want a pack of smokes, if I go get a deck of weeds for less, it's like $2 a pack. When I was on the street, it was like 65. A bag of French fries costs $1.25. It's ridiculous. Hot dogs, $2.50. I can't believe it, you know? I spent $10.
There it is.
No, wait. That's for the wire, right?
Okay, yeah, okay, that's okay.
There's your receipt.
That's $10 for the wire.
Okay, now.
And now from the food, since you spent $10 of your money on food,
right.
you owe me $30 for food.
So I owe you 30. One thing I didn't learn as a criminal was how to budget money. I have gotten a crash course in how to live on very little. And seriously, it's hard. In comparison to when I was on the street in Montreal, I had 2 cars, I had 3 apartments. I had plenty of clothes, all kinds of clothes, and so I mean, like in the contrast in the living styles is actually drastic.
Clothing, 10, 11.
When you're a criminal and you're doing good, you blow a lot of money. And when you're doing bad, I don't know, what do? You go out and be a better criminal.
1 is 12,
okay,
paid.
Fine. Now.
You owe me
$30. I owe you $30.
$30. That's right, for
Okay.
food. Right on.
So now, how's that?
I think we're even, Stephen.
Okay.
Done.
Done. Okay, now. Here, give me a piece.
While he searches for a permanent job, the Correctional Service provides him with temporary employment as a cleaner at its staff training college.
I would think the hardest part of going straight is earning a living, legitimately. Because, like, after 10 years in the joints, I still have no real trade to fall back on, anything that's licensed or anything that's sellable, can be put on the market. So right now I'm in a struggle of working for $3.50 an hour at the staff college. And the prospects are kind of shaky. So sometimes I have to ask myself, am I doomed to a life of minimum wage, you know?
If I could have some idea of your past experience, where did you last work?
Well, okay, here we go. Touchy grounds. I last worked in 1972.
Okay.
Okay.
And where was that, Ron?
It was in a tavern in Montreal.
Okay.
As a waiter.
Anything else that I
have
should know
cooking
about?
Experience, yes.
Okay. Short order?
Well, I haven't got papers for it because I was working in penitentiaries as a cook, yeah.
Was that a term position, or?
No, I was serving time.
Were you?
there.
Okay.
It's not easy because, like, I'm involved with Les and we're bringing up the family together. And there's a lot of things that come up that we didn't foresee, actually.
And you tell me, but I don't need this and I don't need that and my expenses are minimal. And then all of a sudden your expenses aren't minimal.
Well, these are things that just happen, you know?
Well,
Listen, I told you, my philosophy is, look,
Yes.
I'm trying to get into a budget. My philosophy is things look after themselves, right?
But they don't.
Well, obviously they must, because, like, so far everything has been looking after themselves, you know? Granted, it's been touch and go, okay, but, like, give me a chance to start accumulating some money to formulate a fucking budget.
I don't
because,
see
like,
how it
you know,
accumulates when we blow it.
Well, listen, how can I help it? You know, like, I mean, there's things that gotta be paid, you know?
Well, no, yeah, but in small amounts. And when you choose to keep yourself broke, which is a conscious decision on your part, and it is because you insist on putting huge sums of money on things that you owe. I agree that you owe.
Because I don't like to owe.
But, Ron, you also don't like being broke. When you're broke, I also have to deal with it.
It makes me wonder, there's so many criminals in the world. How the hell can you make money in an age like this? I'm constantly aware of the fact that the old me is there. And if things really get too bad, well, I really don't know what would happen. I think there's a 99% chance that I would never go back to crime. But there's always that 0.1%, you know, like nothing is a certainty.
On August 11th, 5 months after leaving Collins Bay, he is granted full parole from Portsmouth Center to live in Lesley Earl's house. This is something of a mixed blessing. He is just scraping by on part-time jobs and painfully aware that he has never made it in the legitimate world. His parole officer, Vic Clark, is concerned about his growing moodiness.
Ron, ever since he came out of the institution, has had some difficulty in establishing what his niche is. It's my belief that every ex-inmate, every offender goes through some major crisis when he comes back to the community. And in Ron's case, it was about 6 or 8 months into the time when he was on full parole. He just wasn't getting anywhere. He was an angry guy.
He'd go looking for fights. He'd go up to Manpower and just jump all over the man there, who may be an incompetent, I don't know. When Ron wanted to fight, he picked his spots and he would go and he'd have wampum arguments, great big arguments. And finally, for both of us, the stress was too much. And in November, we had an enormous fight. that was in the middle of the night, and I just decided after that that I was not prepared to go through this again. There was no way I was going to put myself in that position. And the first thing I had to do was to tell Ron that there was no way he was going to live at the house. We hadn't been handling things well, and that had to change. And the only way I could guarantee that change was if he had a place to be when he was angry. We had to inform the parole service that we were no longer living together, and they of course want to know why and what that means and what the future is, because part of his release plans was that we would be living together as a family. That's still the plan. Just I'm aware that instead of waiting until he got full parole, it means perhaps waiting a couple of years until he's adjusted to being outside.
Things got really, really heavy, man. Really heavy, they did. To the point that when I came out, I stopped doing my exercises, my yoga, I stopped running, I stopped meditating. I was battling booze, if you will. The temptation to go out and constantly just sit in a bar and get bagged and get drunk all the time, just to get away from it all. All aspects of my all character were coming back in to vogue and were overpowering new aspects that I had spent the last 3.5, 4 years building up. Financially, I was really having trouble making it. I was surviving on less than $200 a month. And that was the sum total of my income. I made $3,800 in the first year I was out of prison. You know, and there's always that tug. Someone like me that's in the position that I'm in, there's always that tug to go back towards crime, because like how else do you supplement your income? Unless you're prepared to live on such a low scale that you really do nothing out here. You know, I would find myself walking down the street and seeing an armored truck unloading money in the bank, and would find myself, you know, automatically calculating how many people, how many guards, how many people were around, what, you know, the distance between the truck and the bank, that they have to go across the street, or, you know, so forth and so on. And I would sort of like approach a bank and look at it in different eyes, as I said. And I find myself standing at the counter, watching the tellers opening the drawers and taking the money out, and consciously checking to count how many tills they got, where the manager's office is located. Would it be a good score to go in and take down the manager, or would it be a good score to go in and take down the tills? By January or February, things were so bad that I sat in my room at one point and contemplated two things: going out and buying a gun and doing a score, or committing suicide. I recognized the fact that I had to do something drastic in terms of getting a grip on myself.
Back on the rails, he has plunged into an intensive teacher's training course at the Sivananda Yoga Camp in Valmorin, north of Montreal. He puts in 16-hour days of yoga, meditation, lectures, and chores.
Water cannot be compressed. Air can be compressed. Suppose you fill up a balloon with...
I recognize it as something that would be good for me simply because it would get me away from this environment, away from the pressure of everyday life out here, into an environment that was more conducive to what I was searching for, which is to be a calm, peaceful person. It's a school of discipline. Okay. And I need discipline very badly. If I do not discipline myself 24 hours a day, I have a habit of falling apart and reverting back to my old ways. And physically, it toughened me up, but mentally, I became very determined, I guess, if you will.
And so suddenly, you will not be able to move.
Returning to Kingston, he works part-time in the law library. Some students are surprised at his familiarity with the criminal cases in the law school textbooks. His own case is in one of them. Although he lives separately, Cooney and Lesley are still a couple. He spends a good deal of time with her and the children. She believes this is one of the main reasons he has stayed out of jail.
What he wants is the home life that myself, Darren, and Britton offer. That's what we represent. The fact that we are a family, that there is one day going to be a time when we are all living together, and that's something that he wants more than anything else. It's something he wanted all the time he was growing up, and not having had it, even as an adult, he's really excited about the fact that it's here, and it's not being withdrawn regardless of what he does. Take care.
Today, Ron Cooney returns to Collins Bay, but this time to discuss setting up a prison yoga program so that other inmates may be helped by yoga, as he was.
I think Ron is one of the strongest supervision cases that I've had in a long time, and if anybody can make it, it's Ron. But this is a difficult business, and it's certainly not beyond the realm of possibility that because of his own problems or expectations that he could stumble and fall. But by and large, I believe that Ron will stay out.
Shaking. I feel the outlook, my personal outlook on life, is good. I feel the chances of my successfully being a part of society out here are good. It's been a hard struggle. It will be a hard struggle. I've had a lot of support from very personal friends within this community. I still got a long hill to climb. You know, I haven't gotten to the top of the hill. And hopefully when I do get to the top of the mountain, I don't slide back down the other side.
Inmates who fail on parole usually do so fairly soon. 68% of parolees who are going to have their parole revoked lose it within 6 months of their release from prison. Since his release on day parole on March 17, 1983, Cooney has been out for almost 2 years. For a lifelong criminal, first arrested for armed robbery at 11 years old, that's quite an achievement. And for those who were wondering, no one in Canada serving a life sentence who has been released on full parole has ever been convicted of murder again.